Vijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajanaranjana Jaya Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Radhanata Radha Radhanata Radhe Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Gaurahari 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 Jaya Gaurahari Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Haribo Nitai Gaur Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Gaura Haribo Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you very much, Ravindra Sura Prabhu and devotees. So today we will be continuing our reading from I'll Build Your Temple by His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj. So before we begin, let us offer our obeisances to our acharyas. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatadeshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, everyone. So today we will continue our reading from I'll Build Your Temple. It is also the auspicious day of the appearance of Sri Gadadhar Pandit, so we'll say something towards the end. So it's the first time I'm doing this, but I must say it's such a wonderful book, and this part that we will be covering today is really monumental in Srila Prabhupada's legacy. So it's called Gita in Varda. So Varda, for those who may not know, I also didn't know before this, Varda is a place where social reform happened in India. And that is where the likes of Mahatma Gandhi and his, contemporaries or his associates would gather and come up with these extraordinary plans to I know India was going through the British rule at that time. So Srila Prabhupada, which we'll see now, was invited to Varda to present the Bhagavad Gita. So it is a really nice contrast, which we will explain a little bit further on. But I just wanted to give you that background. So we'll read from the book. So it says, among the influential friends I had been cultivating in Bombay, this is Giriraj Maharaj, was Ramakrishna Bajaj, one of the 20 top industrialists in India, who ran many big companies, including Bajaj Electricals. So this individual created with his the guidance of Acharya Vinoda Bhava, the leading follower of Mahatma Gandhi. So they had created this Gita Pratishthan, which is known as the Gita Foundation, which is where all the organizations in India would come together and discuss Bhagavad Gita. And Indira Gandhi was also very involved in this, and she would get guidance from this leader, Acharya Vinod Bhave. I'm saying that correctly. And then, so Giriraj Maharaj picked up that, these individuals who were presenting the Bhagavad Gita, they didn't want to bring they didn't want to bring Krishna in it, the Bhagavad Gita. When they studied Bhagavad Gita, they would not make reference to Krishna. And then when Prabhupada came to Bombay, and Giriraj Maharaj had told Prabhupada, the idea of their presentation of Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada said that the whole philosophy of Bhagavad Gita culminates in the surrender to Krishna. You couldn't separate him out. So Prabhupada further says, this is very nice that Bajaj wants to invite all preachers of Bhagavad Gita to work together. But what is their understanding of Bhagavad Gita? And this is the instruction. First, we have to understand what Bhagavad Gita is, what Bhagavad Gita teaches, and then we can discuss about coordinating our activities for preaching Bhagavad Gita. What is the use of this conference? There is no use. We should avoid. And then Prabhupada further states, when all these individuals come together, who is going to judge which is correct, which is not, So that was the mood initially. And then Mr. Bajaj had come to Juhu later, a few months later, and personally invited Srila Prabhupada. And then with that personal invitation, Prabhupada accepted. So this conference is a meeting that was attended by selected prominent persons and representatives of different institutions, like we mentioned. And the purpose of it was to engage in the propagation of the Gita and to exchange information about activities, promote closer contacts, and coordinate the work being done in the field of Gita Prachar in different parts of the country and abroad. Prachar means like publicly, promote Bhagavad Gita publicly. It was also an opportunity for members to consider ways of bringing about greater coordination in this work and also to facilitate the furtherance of the cause of Gita Prachar, which is very dear to all of us, in a more effective and systematic manner. So that was the purpose of this conference. And then Srila Prabhupada later says, it is the duty of the Indian leaders to note that this degradation, there is no harm to become materially advanced, but if simply for material advancement we forget our spiritual basis, it will be a great loss. Therefore, I am very eager to revive India's spiritual culture with the help of Gita Foundation. So what Srila Prabhupada is talking about there is, India was becoming very westernized, and they were losing the essence in which they, that was the beauty of India was their culture, the richness of, the practices and devotion as well. So I've just got my notes out. So that is basically the background of the conference. And then we'll skip a little to July the following year, where Srila Prabhupada, no, my apologies, it was July the previous month. So this is explaining the New York Rath Yatra. And so the New York Rath Yatra happens on Fifth Avenue. By show of hands, has anyone been to New York? So New York has different, what avenues, and the most famous are the Seventh Avenue, which is Times Square, and Fifth, which is it's called Fifth Avenue, and that's known for its, being deep in materialistic things. There's all these brand name shops, and it's when you hear the celebrities, they always want to go to Fifth Avenue. Now imagine Lord Jagannath, on his chariot is, stopping the traffic of New York and, gracing everyone with his mercy on Fifth Avenue. So this really, deepened the respect of Srila Prabhupada by others, the other institutions, because who can do this? Who can really pull this off? Especially in America, where it says America is blinded by money, and there's no spiritual inclination because of this materialistic mindset. So Srila Prabhupada actually says that. Yeah, okay, let me read this. He says, so the headline of this Rath Yatra was East meets West in Hare Krishna feet. And, okay, yeah, Fifth Avenue where East meets West. East meets West in Hare Krishna feet. So this was the title of the newspaper, which was really, wonderful to have made those headlines. And then so Prabhupada had sent this article to Mr. Bajaj to show him the preaching that they're doing. And then Srila Prabhupada said, this is the point. The lame man meets the blind man meaning America. Together they do wonderful, but separately they cannot do anything. He is blind and he is lame. But if they join together, Indian culture and American money, they will save the whole world. So I thought that was really beautiful. Um, and then it says, uh, and we Indians have no money, but we have got culture. Combined together, then things will be very nicely done for the good of the whole world. Simply, money is not the end. There must be culture. Take that culture, Vedic culture, and use that American money. Then the whole world would be paradise, Vaikunta. That is a really nice point. And then it further says, so in the letter Srila Prabhupada sent to Mr. Bajaj, it says, Srila Prabhupada says, this is the real platform for United Nations, spiritual understanding. I wish that the coordinator of the Gita Pratishthan will preach the gospel of the Gita on this understanding. So, it's just building up to this conference where Srila Prabhupada is going to attend. So this happened, the conference happened on December 19th and 20th in Varda, Maharashtra. And at this conference, just read this here. So Prabhupada had, initially he asked if 5 devotees can come with him. And, the organizer agreed, and, it was all okay. And then Srila Prabhupada, at a later stage, he asked, can we bring 10 people for Sankirtan? 5 secretaries, 5 for Sankirtan. And then the organizer says, but we only said 5. And then Prabhupada says, no, Gita must be accompanied by Sankirtan. So Srila Prabhupada was very strong on that. and they had allowed him to come with the 10 devotees. So I, so the presentation of the Hare Krishna movement is made on this page 393. It says, one thing has developed now in the Western countries. They are feeling the weight of our movement. Therefore, an attempt is being made to suppress or stop the movement in Europe and America. So this is basically describing how disciples' parents are also becoming very reluctant to for them joining. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining to them this problem, and then he further says, on account of the Hare Krishna movement, people in the Western countries are being attractive. There is now counter propaganda by the enemies. They are organizing opposition. Will Gita Pratishthan help this Hare Krishna movement to face the cultural fighting between East and West? So you can see Srila Prabhupada was very strong in his presentation, and very straightforward of why he was there. He wasn't there to entertain any other um, presentations or like those those type of dealings. He wanted to know how this Gita conference can help him. So he further says, the idea is that the rapid advancement of the Hare Krishna movement has strengthened the foundation of Western civilization. One American politician has remarked that the Hare Krishna movement is spreading like an epidemic. If we do not take steps to stop it, it may one day capture the government. So when I was reading this, at the moment, although it be not in a national state of disaster, but COVID is still going around, and we all know how easy it is to, get COVID. So Radharman and I were talking the other day, like, imagine if distributing books was like that, or just becoming Krishna conscious was like that. So this is the point that Srila Prabhupada is making. It's so full of joy and bliss, and it's also our duty to be. Please excuse the contrast of this example, but the coronavirus goes everywhere and everyone just gets infected. So we as representatives of Srila Prabhupada should also take it upon ourselves to be those little viruses, if we could put it like that, and infect people with Krishna, Krishna service, Krishna, the taste of chanting Hare Krishna. So by that we can, spread these teachings of Lord Chaitanya to everyone. So I really like that point. And then further on, it says, in the foreign countries, India is much advertised as poverty stricken, but if India can give her spiritual culture, Krishna consciousness, she will be glorified everywhere. This should be the aim of Gita Pratishthan. So you can see Srila Prabhupada is going into this conference and giving his vision to these individuals, these very highly respected individuals in India. So Srila Prabhupada is very bold in his approach. And things were taking. Okay, yes. So we'll skip to this very, I would say, the heart of this chapter or this section. Okay, so to further emphasize the point that um, Srila Prabhupada says, the organizers of this conference should know that Sankirtan is an essential ingredient for the Gita conference and it cannot be regarded as separate. So that was his emphasis on Sankirtan alongside, this conference. So I thought that was really nice. And then, the rest of this page describes the program that was organized before the conference, and they had kirtan, and Prabhupada also presented Krishna consciousness. And I'll just read this section. And it says, and after 2 weeks, I was pleased to write, I had a very nice meeting with Mr. Bajaj, and he has agreed to pay for your divine grace and 10 others to go to Varda. Mr. Bajaj suggested we all go by train. as he himself usually goes by train. Mr. Bajaj has also agreed to arrange our program with film by Vinodaji, Vinodaji's ashram during the days of conference. And then further on this page, Srila Prabhupada seems okay. So that's just extra information. All right. So now we will go to how Srila Prabhupada presented the Sri Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Um, so when Prabhupada prepared for the conference, he generated a long list of points about the Bhagavad Gita and how its philosophy could be practically applied to solve the world's problems. So I think for all of us, if I can please humbly request that you make note of page 395, and I'll also show it to you. There's this beautiful list. It's got 32 points of the purpose of reading Bhagavad Gita, and Srila Prabhupada makes references to different verses in the Gita. So it's so beautiful. But I'll just read one or two just so you get the understanding. I also want to get the Bhagavad Gita verse open so we can have it together. So, like for example, number 6. The real problem is to stop transmigration of the soul. People are perturbed by temporary troublesome life, and their valuable lifetime is spoiled to solve the temporary problems. The actual problem is to stop transmigration of the soul. That will solve all the problems. They should be trained up to tolerate the temporary disturbances and should give attention to the serious problem, transmigration of the soul. And then his reference is Bhagavad Gita 2:14, which reads, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O sign of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So, this part, it's so beautiful. Actually, um, this reminds me of when Sarvabhauma Bhatta Acharya, so in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, was presenting the Mayavadi philosophy to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya, he listened, but in his response, he gave this long list that defeated the Mayavadi philosophy. So, my personal realization is that this list that Srila Prabhupada has, put together is really presenting Srimad Bhagavad Gita in its true glory, which is being given by Krishna himself. And that is the point that Srila Prabhupada also made. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. Um, I know that we are a bit short for time, so I would really love to go through it, but please, I humbly request you all, 395. It's a beautiful list. And then I want to further read the problems that have been created in this world and how Bhagavad Gita can solve it. So, Srila Prabhupada lists, um, yeah, so I'll just read this paragraph here. Prabhupada then expounded on how the philosophy of the Gita could be employed to solve specific world problems, though at the meeting, Jagdish would read out only the main headings. So here's the list. So A, scarcity of foodstuff. Throughout the world, so much land is lying vacant. If it is properly cultivated, 10 times more food can be produced. That means that instead of scarcity, there can be ample food produced and distributed. The land is being misused, kept fallow, and the world's population is suffering. And then Srila Prabhupada quotes chapter 3, verse 14 from the Bhagavad Gita. All living entities subsist on food grains which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagya, sacrifice, and yagya is born of prescribed duties. So B, overpopulation. Srila Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita 14:4. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed giving father. If Krishna is the father, he knows how to take care of his children. He is completely opulent, and nature is under his control. So, uh, another verse from Bhagavad Gita 9:10. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and non moving beings. By his rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. The problem is that the rascals, this is Prabhupada, that the rascals are creating their own problems, and quoted verse 9:15. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. And Srila Prabhupada says, if every living being is part and parcel of God and a son of God, does that mean that God is imperfect and creates so many living beings without any provision for their food? Then God becomes imperfect. Then he says, besides that, he says, O Arjuna, as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, this is from Bhagavad Gita, I know everything that has happened in the past and all that is happening in the present and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but no one knows me. So Srila Prabhupada continued to give more evidence of this from the Bhagavad Gita. And it's just really mind-blowing of how Srila Prabhupada presented this. And then C, national defense. There is no question of national. Everything belongs to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada quotes 5:29 from Bhagavad Gita. The sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifice and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material miseries. So things that should be utilized in that way. And then D is taxation. He says that is our created problem. When we transgress the laws of nature, there is a shortage of supply. On this plea, the government will tax, but on the plea of our miseries, they will levy taxes and divide among themselves. That is another way of punishment, because the government is our government. Because we are rascals, we elect other rascals, and they invent ways of rascaldom to mitigate our miseries. To avoid taxation, we have to become good men and select our rulers good men. Then there will be no excessive or false taxation. Then E is race relation, and I thought this was really nice. That is also due to ignorance of Krishna consciousness. If Krishna is the original father, where's the question of race? We are all brothers. And then F, inflation. That is because the government, they are all rogues and thieves. And instead of giving real money, they print paper and cheat the public. The public are all fools. So, it just shows inflation. And then G, water and air pollution. That is also our creation. Water coming from the sky is pure, but as soon as it touches the ground, we, where you are living, it becomes polluted. It is due to your always being engaged in sinful activities, duskritana, without Krishna consciousness. Then H, fuel shortage. That is nature gain, restricting the supply. I, student unrest. They are the sons of demons and not properly educated. J, crime. When people are in distress, there will be crime. Duskritana. The atheist class must be criminals because they do not believe in higher authority. So it's really nice, how Srila Prabhupada presents these things. And it's so relevant to us. I'm sure we can all relate to all these, if not one, all, in our current situation. And Srila Prabhupada is giving the solution from Bhagavad Gita. So that was Prabhupada's presentation. And then I'll just So Prabhupada had written 1 or 2 pages about the topic, and it actually became a small booklet. And he said all others should consult them and live as Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras, and so on. So at the end of the discussion, Prabhupada asked Jagdish if there were any problems to be solved, and Jagdish replied, "No, I think we've exhausted them all." One of Prabhupada's secretaries told me that Prabhupada knew every verse in the Gita, or if there were some he didn't know exactly, he was aware of their contents. This compilation demonstrated to me both Prabhupada's thorough knowledge of the Gita and his deep conviction that it could answer all questions and solve all problems. So I thought that was, really, really powerful point. And then, so Srila Prabhupada, it says here, before the beginnings of the meeting, Prabhupada told me, "When I see you all enthusiastic to distribute my books, my enthusiasm increases." I was surprised, this is Giriraj Maharaj, I was surprised because Prabhupada was always unlimitedly enthusiastic. But the Vedanta Sutras says that Brahman, Krishna, or Krishna consciousness is unlimitedly great and always expanding. And by Prabhupada's mercy, our little enthusiasm was able to contribute to his great enthusiasm. So it says here, Mr. Bajaj arranged for Prabhupada and his party to take prasadam on the veranda of the house where Mahatma Gandhi, uh, Jawaharlal Nehru, uh, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and Janmalal Bajaj had all taken their meals, pointing out where each of them had sat, as we sat in the same place. So, in Varda there was this, Mahatma Gandhi's ashram, and Srila Prabhupada makes a really nice point where, Mahatma Gandhi, as much as he, respected and also read the Bhagavad Gita, but the presence of Krishna was not there. And, here we talking about where these, in India, these would be called great souls, Mahatma, it's like great souls. So, it's really funny that, they're saying this is where, Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, and Bajaj. Sorry, I'm not a great Indian scholar, like a history scholar, but, from my understanding, these were like the, powerful, like our Nelson Mandela. This is their, you know, uh, revered individuals. So they were taking meals where they were sitting where they had taken meals. So it's like, in an India, if you're from India, it's almost like a holy place, that type of thing. But Prabhupada, he actually states that, how can you? There was in Mahatma Gandhi's ashram, there was like a lamp and all the things, his belongings that he had kept. So how can you worship that? Where's Krishna consciousness? So that is the point that Srila Prabhupada was making, but he never made it in front of them. Srila Prabhupada was also very cautious in his presentation. So we'll read a little more about the actual conference. So when Prabhupada addressed the assemblage, his argument was clear and simple. Krishna had preached the Bhagavad Gita to instruct people to become devotees. Man manam bhava mad bhakto. And how did people become devotees? By chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Therefore, those who wanted to preach the message of the Gita should propagate the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. And altogether, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Because that would fulfill the Lord's purpose in the Bhagavad Gita. Then it says, in this half-hour talk, he also emphasized that those that only those who accepted the Gita as Arjuna did that right. Sorry, those. He also emphasized that only those who accepted the Gita as Arjuna did had the right to preach it. Otherwise, it was a waste of time. When Prabhupada finished, so there's another individual that comes into this, pastime, uh, Chidananda. Chidananda Saraswati. He is from Divine Life, and one of the you know successors of Swami Sivananda. And then he says, Giriraj Maharaj further elaborates on the story. When Prabhupada finished, Chidananda was finally given the microphone. He seemed annoyed that so little time remained for him, but Prabhupada didn't seem to care. The meeting ended shortly after noon, and Prabhupada returned to Bajawajwadi, please excuse my pronunciation, in a car with Chidananda, and another man sitting with him in the back, and Jagdish and Hari Sori in the front with the driver. So on the way, Chidananda launched into a eulogy of Bhava, describing his plans for spreading the message of the Gita to the masses. He spoke about Bhava's latest attempt at social reform, his creation of the women's power awakening movement, which to Hari Sori sounded like a Gandhian version of women's liberation. Chidananda declared that Bhave had understood that the world needed love, compassion, and sensitivity to change for the good. And because all these qualities were naturally found in women, he said, Bhave had a program to train young women between the ages of 16 and 20 for a 7-year period in his ashram. They learned to chant Sanskrit and the Vishnu Sahasranama and were trained in the Shastras, the principle of cleanliness and how to organize family life. They chose a district in India where they would work and learn the local language, and after the 7-year period, they would travel there on foot. From there, they would go from one village to another, organizing the women into groups and teaching them by personal examples how to be clean, run their families, and so forth. Bhave's idea was that if there was a good atmosphere at home, the men would naturally be pacified and peace in society would prevail. Hari Sori, which is Prabhupada's personal servant, thought that the project was a laudable enough endeavor, no doubt, but completely mundane, hardly the real essence of teachings of the Gita. While Chindananda was speaking, Prabhupada, sitting to his left, was mostly looking out of the window. At the beginning of the laudation, Prabhupada pointed out that the Gita was actually for the leaders of human society, and only if they took it seriously could society be changed for the good. But Chidananda wouldn't hear him out and was determined to have his say. When Chidananda had calmed down a bit, Prabhupada turned to him and said, "The thing is, you can imagine any plan you like, but the fact is, Stri Sudra Dvija Bandhanam. These are the less intelligent class of human being, and they cannot preach Bhagavad Gita. Of course, if the women are devotees, then it is different." Chidananda replied cuttingly, "Well, of course, the masses are less intelligent, so the path of devotion is naturally the only way for them. Because they have no knowledge, they can only be engaged in bhakti. It was a typical envious fault that Mayavadis imputed to the devotees. Prakasananda Saraswati had leveled the same criticism at Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago, that bhakti was only for the less intelligent. One who was more intelligent engaged in the study of Vedanta. This time, Prabhupada replied with labored patience, "I have already explained that the Gita is for the Raja Rishis, the leaders of society, who are almost great saintly persons." But Chidananda would not allow Prabhupada to continue. He was determined to be heard, and having been denied the opportunity to speak at the meeting, he now imposed himself on everyone in the car with his praise of non-devotees. Prabhupada simply turned away to look out the window again. So the point that's being emphasized here is that, you know, they, we, this program for women, they're saying that bhakti is, the presentation is that bhakti is lower than the study of the Vedas or the Vedanta. But Srila Prabhupada is taking it back to Bhagavad Gita, because Krishna says, do everything with love and devotion. I mean, chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita is solely focused on devotional service, and that is the heart of Bhagavad Gita. So, Srila Prabhupada, he didn't want to, argue with him, but he just says, I've made this presentation, and he referred to it. So later, there's actually a really nice. I'll just skip a little, just to further elaborate on this interaction. Um, Chidananda Swami had met with Radhanath Swami, many years after this, and it's so beautiful. I'm just going to read it out if that's okay. So as we sat close, Radhanath Swami later remembered, he told me of his deep appreciation and respect for Srila Prabhupada and the wonderful things he had done to spread bhakti throughout the world. Then, with great enthusiasm, he asked me to tell him Prabhupada's life story. So I told him about Prabhupada's first meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and how Prabhupada's friend, Narendra Malik, insisted that he visit this great sadhu and took him to the Gaudiya Math in Calcutta. And they went upstairs to the rooftop where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was speaking to a group of people. And almost immediately, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave him a lifelong instruction. You are an intelligent man. You should take the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu throughout the world in the English language. Before I could speak another word, Chidananda Saraswati, hearing, you should take the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the whole world in the English language. He became so emotional that he jumped out of his seat, stood up, and raised one of his arms in the air, and tears flooding his eyes, and said, that was not just an instruction, that was divine prophecy. He said it again, that was not just an instruction, that was divine prophecy. He did it. He actually did it. He spread Lord Chaitanya's teachings in the English language all over the world. He did it. And then he sat down and I spoke about Prabhupada for another 45 minutes and was in rapt attention, emotionally listening and appreciating. So, despite that feeling of, coming from a different background, but even so, he could see Srila Prabhupada's greatness, and I just thought that was a really beautiful point to highlight. And then I'll just read the last few pages here. So this is going back to Srila Prabhupada's, the continuation of this pastime. So they had returned to Bombay, and there was a copy of an article that Madalsa Narayan and showed it to Prabhupada. Sorry, there was an article by Madalsa Narayan, and it was shown to Prabhupada. And the article had appeared in the major papers, and it praised Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON for their work of re-spiritualizing the society. And so it further says, it was especially significant because all of the accusations being leveled. Sorry, can I just read this again? The article, which had appeared in the major papers, praised Prabhupada and ISKCON for their work in re-spiritualizing society. It was especially significant because all of the accusations being leveled against us. So this is Prabhupada. Where she has sent this article, Prabhupada said, in some of the newspapers in Varda and maybe Nagpur. She has written very nicely, Prabhupada said. Good writer. She picked up the essence of the movement. And he asked Gopal Krishna to publish the article in the next edition of Bhagavad Darshana, the Hindi counterpart of Back to Godhead. The next day, December 31st, a local reporter came to interview Prabhupada. When you impart this knowledge to Western disciples, he asked, and when you talk to someone who is in India, what difference do you find? Indian men refuse this culture, Prabhupada replied. India's leaders, beginning from Gandhi and all, do not know what is India's culture. They have forgotten. Would you like to include Gandhi also in that? Oh yes, otherwise how can it be? Andya yatande upanya manaha, the blind leading the blind. But but he was the one who also preached Gita. And and then Prabhupada says, but he did not know Gita, actually. Recently I've been in his ashram. They are maintaining the chatai and the lantern in the memory. But what is that? If Mahatma Gandhi understood Gita, he should have introduced that in that ashram. Where is that? The chatai food arrangement is there. That is done by his disciples and not by him. He never, and then Prabhupada says, that means he could not make his disciples correctly. That is true. That is true. Therefore, he did not know. Now, see how within 10 years my disciples are working all over the world. I am sitting here, but still my business is going on. You have to train in such a way. The deity worship going on. They are now opening different branches, establishing deity exactly in the way I have trained. It is a question of training. Gandhi manufactured. So, we'll pick on this point a little later in our discussion. But yeah, that was the presentation of Mahatma Gandhi. And then we'll go to the last part of this chapter. It's a very short pastime, but it's nice to go through. Um, Prabhupada's disciple, Amoga Lila Dasa, who was assisting in Juhu, did not have much personal association. So Prabhupada was, doing a morning walk on the rooftop of Juhu, and he joined Prabhupada, and he asked Prabhupada a question. I heard you quoted a saying that anyone who goes to Lanka becomes a Ravana, and that similarly when devotees come to India, they become Ravana. Amoga Leela said to him, can you explain what you meant and how you can avoid that happening? Ask the leaders, Prabhupada replied. I was saying that in all our branches, our devotees managed the cooking and kitchen. There was no question of hiring or paying someone to do the work in the temple. The devotees would do everything, cut the vegetables, cook the prasadam, wash the pots, clean the kitchen, do the laundry, clean the bathrooms. But as soon as they come here, they become Bada Sahibs, big masters. That is Ravana. Why do they not do here? Here we have to keep some cook who is neither initiated nor very clean. In all other branches, the boys and girls manage everything. So the solution Amoga Lila proposed is to follow your instructions to chant the holy names and follow the regulations more strictly. That means Ravana, Prabhupada retorted. He's asking, I'm repeating, saying to follow, and he's asking. That means he's a Ravana. Why are you inquiring? If you know this is a solution, why don't you do it? I therefore say, Ye Lankye se haya Ravana. Anyone who comes to Lanka, he becomes Ravan. So Amoga Leela started going around saying, Srila Prabhupada wants us to do all the cooking ourselves, and we should get rid of the hired people. The next morning, our local GBC told Amoga Leela that he had informed Prabhupada how Amoga Leela was telling the devotees that he should get rid of all the hired help, and that Srila Prabhupada had said, who is this Amoga Leela? Why is he creating disturbance? So, so Prabhupada wanted us to know, be convinced that if we just follow his instructions, the process that he had given, all the problems would be solved. And we should apply such instructions intelligently according to time, place, and circumstances as Prabhupada did. So this ends the chapter October 1973 to January 1977. And this is the best part of the book because all the pictures are in the middle here. So I encourage you all to, go through that. And like I said, 395 with the list that Srila Prabhupada presents of Bhagavad Gita. So I'll just say a few words that I really took from this chapter. The first one is Srila Prabhupada really emphasized that the Bhagavad Gita should be presented as it is, which he has done, because like Srila Prabhupada says, it's Krishna's words, not our own concoction. So, this Bhagavad Gita is, for me, this section, Gita and Varda, is like, the Bhagavad Gita is just being, um, I don't know what's the word, but like emerged, from this darkness of ignorance and interpretation. So, we have this Bhagavad Gita as it is, and it is also our duty to share it with others, because many people don't know the essence, or have misunderstanding. So we can always give it as a gift, or if people are but hesitant, we can always just share it with them, because whatever Prabhupada is saying is Krishna's word. So that's the really beautiful part. And then today is also the appearance of Gadadhar Pandit, which is one of the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And, all glories to Giriraj Maharaj for writing this book. And this morning when I saw he had posted something about Gadadhar Pandit, so I'll just read that as well as a conclusion. Today is the appearance day of Sri Gadadhar Pandit. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 10:15 says, Gadadhar Pandit is described as an incarnation of the pleasure potency of Sri Krishna. No one, therefore, can equal him. And the purport elaborates. In the Gaura Gunadesh Dipika 147-53, it is stated, Sri Krishna's pleasure potency, formerly known as Vrindavaneshwari, is now personified in the form of Sri Gadadhar Pandit in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Sarup Damodar Goswami has pointed out that in the shape of Lakshmi, the pleasure potency of Krishna, she was formerly very dear to the Lord as Shyamasundar Vallabha. The same Shyamasundar Vallabha is now present in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes as Gadadhar Pandit, formerly as Leela Saki. She was also devoted to Srimati Radharani. Thus, Gadadhar Pandit is simultaneously an incarnation of Srimati Radharani and Lalita Saki. So, we'd like to beg for the mercy today, and always, but we also have our monthly Sankirtan festival today, so we'd like to beg for the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, Gadadhar Pandit, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that we can be instruments in this beautiful movement. And so Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please also forgive me, I've never done this style of class before, so forgive my mistakes. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Would like to further elaborate on anything? Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna.